Today, Alexei will be talking to Annie Paschen, a former student at the Elan School, the notorious boarding school in Maine that was shut down in 2011 because of their severely controversial practices. The reason we do this podcast, this series, is to inform people not only about the practices that have occurred in the past, but to shine a light on many institutions and therapeutic boarding schools, wilderness camps, conversion therapy schools that are still, in fact, in operation. Our goal, in fact, is to raise enough awareness so places like this also get shut down. I want to thank everybody who's been listening for the past several months, and to also let you know that we now have a Patreon where you can contribute to our channel and to our podcast for as little as $1 a month. It really is a helpful thing if you can manage to afford to do that. We have 3 tiers, $1, $3, $5. You will get early releases, special episodes, some kind of backroom post-game talk that isn't for the general public. Sometimes it's a little bit more explicit, and things that a channel like YouTube wouldn't necessarily allow. So that's what's going on today, and welcome to Season 2 of the V2V podcast. And as always, thanks for watching.
Hello, and welcome to another series of the Survivor Series on V2V podcast. My name is Alexei Lindes, or Shorts. Today I'm interviewing Annie Paschen, and she is a survivor of Elan School. Hi, Annie. How are you?
Hey, how you doing, Lexi?
I'm doing okay,
good.
Thanks. How are you?
Doing pretty good.
Okay. So, first I'd kind of like to get you to explain to me what TTI is to you and how you define TTI, the troubled teen industry.
While I would find it very disturbing, I think it did a lot more damage than it good for anybody. How I got there, I was just a basic kid, and I used to run away from youth to put others, in my situation, because a lot of us were like a lot of the same. Some of us had other issues, but some of us had, family issues. Kind of like the Breakfast Club, if I might add it to that way. We found ourselves in a place called Elan. And Elan was a very unique place, I thought at the time, and find out today that it's not so unique because it's brainwashing, it's tortured for children. There's a surprise, it never closes, never closed. Anything can happen at any time. We had things like general meetings. A general meeting is where a child is put in front of a house, or different houses. So you have anywhere from 30 to 300 people screaming in your face at one time. And that usually would put you in a boxing ring. And the boxing ring was a circle of children all together. And then they would take the biggest guy or the biggest girl from the house and put you in with them. And you'd go several rounds until you were defeated. It's happened quite often. They were asked to knock it off, but they never did until like maybe the late 90s. I think they finally stopped the ring, or maybe the early 2000s. Elan opened in 1970, I believe. And
Okay.
the founders were interesting. One of them was a psychiatrist. Okay, so he knew the damage that this was going to cause children, and he even put his own children in this wild, dangerous, bizarre place. And then there was Joe Ritchie, and Joe Ritchie was a supposedly a con man stealing people's Social Security checks. So instead of going to prison, they sent him to daytop because he said he was a heroin addict. I don't know if he was a heroin addict. I do know that he was an active cocaine user in the program.
Now, daytop is a spin-off of Synanon, correct?
Correct. That is a Cinnamon school, to my understanding.
So what we're talking about is brainwashes entering into a program, becoming hooked onto whatever idea, they're being tortured with, and then taking it outside and creating their own enterprise of torture.
Exactly.
So it's kind of it's a rather incestuous sort of industry, because it seems like a lot of programs have started from ex-victims or, ex-students of places.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have to say that with most of the people.
Right.
But Elan was unique in a way because we had adults running around as well, and I'm not sure what they were doing there. Like a 30-year-old with a 15-year-old. That's kind of bizarre in its own way.
Were they paid? Those 30-year-olds, were they being paid?
No, they were actually victims. As ridiculous as that sounds, Elan took anybody for money. We had people that, we had one girl that actually killed some students, some young children, drowned them, and put them with other children. When I got there, the first night that I got there, I seen a guy that was 30 years old running around in a baby costume, and perhaps somebody, that was probably in their 20s, dressed like a syringe. This place was very unique, and I knew I was in a very dangerous situation in 1982.
So, were these graduates of Elan?
They weren't graduates, no, they were residents. To be a graduate, you'd have to graduate their program. Usually, the basic person that was there was anywhere from the age of 12 to 18. That was like the basic age, of most people. And the younger the better, because the younger you were, the more you got tortured. I got there when I was 15 years old. And yeah, and when I got there, they had taken children and put them into a trailer and let them do whatever they wanted to each other for like 2 weeks. This was a very bizarre place. People were knocking on doors. There was a lot of screaming. It's very intense and very hard to explain into words a program and how you would feel walking into this. It was rather shocking. And they would dress people up. There was a mentally retarded child there with a cigarette hat on, which was like a big dunce cap, but it was a cigarette hat. And he was in Elan 3, so I didn't really see him too often. But I was one that would go around because I PO'd a lot of people in corners. And, I had general meetings and stuff too. So to PO somebody in a corner, that means a personal overseer, and that means you oversee that person, and if they act out, then you will be punished for that. Like they used to have kids living in the dumpsters, for example, and they would have a PO, and if one of the kids from the dumpsters ran away, then you were put in the dumpster. And everything I'm saying is documented, so.
So basically, you come into the program and you're probably given a PO, and then you work for a certain amount of time, and once you're trusted enough, you can then become a PO, right?
Well, a PO is usually someone that's watching someone in the corner, or observing somebody, that's stuck in the dumpsters to make sure that it ran away. So when you first get in, you get a big sister, you get a big brother, and they basically, if you have to use the bathroom, they have to go to the bathroom with you. And if you need to, do something, they go with you. There is no phone calls. There is no communications with your family. There is no communications with the outside world. You are stuck in the middle of Maine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So,
And
can you sort of keep going with how the sort of system works, how you advance, and what sort of, can you start off with the brother and sister?
I'm
And
sorry, I
then,
couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
sorry, could you please explain how the level system works, and sort of
The level.
how you...
Yeah,
Huh?
yes, I can explain that. Usually
Okay.
when you would come into the program, you are a service worker, which means you are cleaning the bathrooms and the house, and the next level is like a ramrod, and that's someone that oversees the worker. And then you have like a department head, and that's like the middle of kind of like the crew. And then you'd have a coordinator trainee, and then a full coordinator, and then you'd have a senior coordinator. Most houses do not have a senior coordinator when I was there. That's someone that's like the mayor of the house. The kids kind of ran the house because the staff was usually busy. If they weren't GMing somebody, giving someone a GM or giving someone a haircut, they pretty much did what they wanted to. And then there was another like part of the system to where there was like the police force. And the police force, you would start out as an expediter. An expediter would go around taking head counts and would make sure everybody was there. Or if you left, like if you were fortunate enough to go get a root canal, as ridiculous as that sounds, you look forward to that, okay? You would be written out that you were gone, so they would keep track of you. Then there was a single expediter, and his job is to make sure the expediters are doing his job, so he's kind of like the sergeant. And then there's like the chief expediter, and he's kind of like the chief of police, and you'd go to him and he would tell on people, like so-and-so swore on the floor, but you'd have to book people. They looked at this. They would take an inventory, and if you weren't doing what they wanted you to do, then you would be severely punished. Then there was a coordinator of that, and that was like the mayor of the whole police chief, enforcement people, the expediters, So, it was really unique and very, bizarre. It was very much, very confusing. And someone put it in his words, and I like the way that she put this, is that it was like kind of like Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
It was every man for themselves. The more you told, the more you confront people, the quicker you kind of graduate, but then they would play mind games with you, and of course, shot you down or do something to you too. And then there was a stage in the program it's called reentry, and your reentry into society. Now, by this time, you usually are so brainwashed or you're so traumatized that you have this expression on your face, like, very blank, very disconnected, because you've already been through so much at this point. You've been through boxing rings and sitting in corners and dressed like a baby or dressed like a prostitute. It was a very, very bizarre place. And I studied the straight program, but I have no experience in that, so I don't feel comfortable talking about it right now. But that was also like a very abusive, mind-controlling experience, and that's what it was. It was about control. And if somebody ran away, it's bad enough that you got one child running around the woods, but then they would send more children out to look for that child, which is bizarre because that's endangerment to children running around the woods of Maine. There's wild animals, and there's people that are with guns, people with property, so, and there was knowing that a few people got shot when they ran away. But they would always catch you. That was their example. There's no sense in running away. I never saw any sense in it because I knew they'd catch me.
So did Joe kind of set up shop in that community and kind of make himself a good name in that particular area of Maine?
Yes, he did. Not everybody liked Joe, but he was a figure in society. I came from like my grandfather was the chief of police and had a lot of experience with children, and because he's taken a lot of psychology, he was an intelligent man. And the first night that I came to Elan, we were met by Dr. Davidson and his son, who I really don't want to mention his name because I know this guy has a lot of psych problems now. But his son looked pretty much like he was disconnected. And so they used their own children to make the place look better. Like, look, I got my kids here. And they kind of sabotaged their life. And they had, see, Joe Ritchie wasn't able to pull that off because, they needed someone to fool my grandfather. For example, and I'm just like one person out of many. I'm sure there was a lot of other intelligent people there too, but, most, like, you know, if you were educated, you were going to meet this Dr. Davidson firsthand because he was a psychiatrist and he knew exactly how to manipulate and what to say to people's parents to reassure them that this was a good place.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I have a couple of like questions because
Sure.
I don't really want to pry too hard into this, but did you know the man who was accused of killing someone? And who then sentenced?
That individual I did not know personally. It's ironic I know who you're talking about. I was watching the ID station and that's when I heard the word Elan, that's what triggered my memory because it's told to me that when someone has complex PTSD and you live your whole life and don't even know that you have it, and you're misdiagnosed with other things. Like they thought I was bipolar until they, discovered that I was in this place. No, that's what really woke me up. And, I didn't know him personally. I'm told different things, like he didn't do it, that Elan beat him so badly in the ring. And then I've had people tell me that yes, he did it. So it's for me to say that he did or he didn't do it, really is not like something I can specify on because I didn't know. I don't want to give anybody false information. I want to be as real as I can.
I think the main point is that even if he did or didn't, let's just say he did, and then he was sent to Elan to be with you guys in a place where there's very little supervision.
Yes, that was a very dangerous situation. Yes, that could have been also, if he did.
He was made to walk around with a sign saying, "I am a murderer. I killed this person." I mean, the levels of just, fucked upness of our system alone, that this person, wasn't put on trial prior to this or wasn't, somehow separated prior to this from you guys at least anyway, or the general public in some way, and then being pushed in a situation where, false confessions in these places, in TTI, false confessions, they fly out of your mouth like nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. You would be admitting to 9/11 if you had to.
Yeah. I mean, like, when it comes to the point where you are being pushed, and you are in a situation where you're being tortured, you are going to say whatever the fuck you need to say to get out.
Exactly, and you would.
I shot Tupac, whatever. Just stop doing this to me, please. I'll do whatever you want.
Yeah, and in all fairness to that individual, I was told by a lot more people than a lot of people that said that he did do it. I was told that he didn't do it, that it was beaten out of him, and that he was a bloody mess. I mean, he could hardly walk after that boxing incident. So, I mean, I kind of knowing Elan, I would have to figure that maybe he was innocent, but at the same time, I don't want to specify on something that I really don't know much about.
Sure.
You know, I could tell you. Go ahead.
I also want to ask about the young man who died in the ring. And I mean, if you don't want to talk about that, that's fine too.
No, that's fine. You know, he's just he was a state kid, and his dad was in prison and his mom was in a coma because his dad tried to whack off his mother. And, you know, I would imagine, because we were not allowed to talk, you know, like, you know, discuss family life or anything like that, or issues. But I would imagine his life wasn't very well, if his dad tried to kill his mother. And, his mother, I guess I've heard, I'm not sure, again, I don't know these people. I know Phil, but, I didn't know his mother, but she was supposedly a party person, and I don't really know the whole story of that, because that was like an Elan secret. But, Bill Williams was known, and I have been asked on 3 different occasions by the, state of Maine, by their investigators, what happened that night. And just like psychiatrists have told me that I had to go get professional help, because this was one of my first memories, and I would go into like a trance, and I would go on autopilot because I'd be driving my car, for example, but I'd be back in time. And Bill Williams was put in the boxing ring for supposedly faking a headache when he already had headaches prior to this. So, and he was seeing a doctor. So when they put him in a boxing ring, you know, it's fan up and it's illegal, you know, it's like a cockfight or a dog fight. Yeah. It's illegal to put somebody in a boxing ring, and they were told to knock it off. But they put this particular kid into a boxing ring, and I don't know what they expected that was going to happen to him, because they knew he had brain injuries already. So to punch him in the head repeatedly would trigger any brain problems he had. And that's a very that was probably the worst day of my life, you know, and I've had some pretty bad days in my life, but I would honestly say that beats anything, because I blocked it out. I did not want to comprehend it. I couldn't comprehend it. I lived all these years without remembering it. My cat died in my arms, and I didn't comprehend that somebody else died in front of me. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of bizarre how when your mind is ready to let go, or when you're at peace, you know, these memories are going to trigger back. And that's really what I want to write about, is complex PTSD and how it works, you know, and how it can affect somebody's life. Because I've talked to different investigators about this, and they got the same answers. You know, it's been consistent, but I remember a little more all the time about that night. It's like a trigger that will remind you of who else was in the boxing ring with him. And they would make people beat on people, and that's kind of really, if you think about it, psycho. You're making somebody cause violence and harm on somebody else. You know?
It's one of the most sadistic stories I've heard from TTI, the ring. It is by far, because I can see how that could happen. Mm-hmm. I can see how in confrontation, you know, group, and this is just from my own experience, which is, you know, not anything to do with yours, but I can see how that can all turn, and I can see how mob mentality takes over in that situation, and it just becomes this mess, and someone ends up dead. Yeah. You know, I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see.
Yeah. And I've heard that there was other deaths in this place, but there was other deaths in other institutions too, from neglect and covered up. Because, what happened is Phil laid on that floor for a good hour before they got him some help. And, I just stood there frozen. I couldn't move. And other kids were like, cause I screamed to get him help. And the thing that really bothers me is I tried to get him some help and I was told to sit the hell down. And the guy, the staff member, an adult, continued to joke around and laugh. And, told me he would take care of it when he could. And, that was a very hard, thing to say and see.
So can I just ask you, so they eventually get him help. So 911 call comes, right? Or someone comes?
Well, there was, after Phil went into convulsions, he was put into a corner and I was with BO. I think that makes it even harder. Now, Phil was also my friend. And,
Sorry, what? Sorry,
yeah.
what?
And I said, Phil was also my friend, they were called contracts, that's another word for, of Elan. But, I had like 4 friends. In fact, I goofed around with everybody, so I was just kind of a goofing kind of kid. And there was other good kids in there too, all we wanted to do was be kids. But, you'd have to tighten up when the adults were around. You'd have to like tighten up when other children were around because you didn't know who was gonna ratch out or who wasn't gonna ratch out. Yeah. But to get back to that night with Phil, he started to turn blue and purple, and I screamed for help, and all the children came running in, and the staff member that was left behind because there was 2 that put him in the ring. And the one came in, and then he was like on the floor for a little while. I'm gonna say a good hour. It might have been longer, it might have been shorter, but when you're in that state of mind, it's very hard to comprehend. I couldn't comprehend it. And I think that's why I froze. And I think a lot of the other children as well were freaked out, just as freaked. Yeah. And, then they had 2 more staff members come in, and then they finally had, 2 ambulance people come and just put him on a stretcher and take him out. And, I looked up, things like brain injuries and stuff like that. So he was probably in a lot of pain, when this was going on and before, because I'm sure that, anybody having this kind of problem with their head, you get pain behind your ears and you get pain behind your eyes, and it was pretty, it wasn't anything unusual. They should have taken him to the hospital, if you ask me. I mean, anybody who needs medical attention should be taken to the hospital, so. And that's not what they did. They didn't care. And he was a state kid, so, they didn't have to answer to anybody. See, that's kind of makes me more suspicious if this wasn't, I want to say premeditated, but I think it was just to be mean and that's Elan and that they didn't give a shit,
Sure.
kind of thing.
Sure. I'm so sorry that happened. Like
yeah, well,
like
he's at peace, and
yeah, I know, but I mean, like, I'm sorry for all of you that witnessed it. I can't imagine that any of you walked out of that without tremendous trauma. I mean, I'm sure some stuffed it up, but
I think it caused more trauma in my life and me not recognizing it. My grandfather, if I would have told him when I came out, he was just like newly retired chief of police, and he had a lot of people that would have backed him up on that, maybe, But I can't say for sure because Joe Ritchie's a good scam artist, and so is Dr. Davidson. But I just have that guilt feeling that I didn't remember him. So, and they did come back to ask about Phil. There was 2 women and a man, and when they asked that, we were told by Elan like 2 days later, if you say anything, they'll be sorry. So, they asked me, and I kind of just went comatose out the window, and a few other children did too, I would imagine. We didn't say anything, and so it was not talked about after that. So, that's bad situation there.
How long had you been in the program when that happened?
I was there for about 11 months at this time. I got to Elan on January 21st in 1982, and this happened on December 26th, 1982. And the kid just turned 15. I think it was like we didn't have birthdays or anything, so we don't really know. But I know this from looking at his newspaper article. I think he was born around October 3rd or something. October 2nd was his birthday, so he was just newly 15 when that happened. And, yeah.
I do have one more name to bring up.
Okay.
Hold on a second. I'm just looking for it. Sorry.
That's okay. Take your time.
William Diamond. Who's that?
Bill Diamond, I don't know him personally, but he is the senator or some kind of authority figure of Maine. He was a good friend of Joe Ritchie's, and he is pretty correct.
So that's how this all kind of went down.
Yes. So that's, Joe's running, I had to find this humorous because, my mind would not go back and think about Elan and the harm that it did, but my grandparents were talking about Joe Ritchie when I was like maybe 20 years old. So now we're talking about 86, and they told me that he was running for mayor or, I think it was Senate or something like that. The governor, I think it was governor. And I just kind of like, what? They really, Joe Ritchie had that charming personality when he wasn't coked up, the worst thing you can do, the one thing, I really want to make clear to people, if you have a child in any kind of treatment program or any kind of school, don't give them a phone call. Just show up there. Just go there and see what you find. You may be shocked,
Yeah, and I mean, I'll even preface it that I'll say, ask directly to see where the kids are going who are on the lower levels and what they are doing. Mm-hmm. Because these programs have a habit of shoving aside to one side of the campus what they don't want visitors and parents to see.
Exactly. That's exactly. You just described Elan to the T. The hookers that were dressed like hookers, their clothes were either they would move the girls or they would take off the clothes and make them look normal. And the signs would come off and people were in the corners, they'd get moved around. So Elan's not the only one that would do that. See, that's what I really want to make clear, to people now. I don't care if it's a camp or if it's some kind of retreat or if it's a boarding school or a military school or a treatment center. You really any place that tells you can't talk to your kids, okay, or they can't call you, that might be a red flag for something that's definitely going on.
And like any place that you go to and you're told that you can't see the entire campus that your child is in, and you need to be able to see the whole fucking thing. And I'm sorry, but sorry to use that language, but
it's okay.
I am totally convinced that these places are clever enough to sweep aside and to sort of make things look a certain way. I certainly remember the days when parents would come visit at Heritage, and I remember how things would change. All of a sudden we've got all this food out, and all of a sudden we've got, all of the kids who are on the lower levels are all of a sudden down in ISU, and they're not being seen by anyone on campus.
Exactly. And the screaming stops. Like in Elan, the screaming would stop, the haircuts would go off, because that's when you're knocking at the door, and they'd have 3 people screaming at you. And the knock right there, all those would shut off, so nobody heard me yelling. So you're exactly right. I have to agree with that 100%. These are things that you just want to go there and catch them in the act. Seriously.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
you know, this man made a documentary, and I had a couple of people from California streaming this, okay? They never knew places like this existed, and they were pretty appalled, I must say, you know? And I've had people...
That documentary is called The Last Stop, and I recommend everyone go see The Last Stop.
Yes, I wasn't sure if we could bring that up, if that could be said, you know, so I wasn't sure. Yes, The Last Stop...
I don't know if I'm allowed to, but I would certainly like to link to it in this video, because I think it gives a pretty decent idea, like in the trailer.
Yeah, TJ's a pretty easygoing guy, and I don't think you'd have a problem with you saying that or with me saying that. In fact, I think that's on its way to Australia right now. I'm not really sure, but I heard from another survivor. And we want, you know, there's people writing books, and there's people making movies, and we want people, you know, the more noise that we make, the more books we write, or the more we talk about it, or let other people know that have younger kids that might be in your boarding school. The more that we talk about it, the more awareness that we can bring, and that's what I feel that we can do. You know what I'm saying? We can't stop them, you know, but if we can make people aware of them, eventually kids like Elan slows down because people stop sending their children there. So if people stop sending their children, then they have to close down shop because there's no money coming in.
Right,
you know,
exactly.
Which is good, which is what we want to do.
I think, and that's really where I kind of wanted to end this conversation, or at least get to, was that I think that these places operate because they're allowed to operate in the dark.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the big thing, is to shine a light on these places, to show that they're absolutely bullshit, and to show that there's child abuse going on. And that's what it is.
And just to make it clear, because I know a lot of people from the straight program, you have the President of the United States, George Bush at the time, telling you to send your children to straight. People are going to listen to the President of the United States, per se, you know. And then they got Lady Diane involved. But see, she doesn't, you know, it was so hard to imagine this woman abusing somebody. She didn't. They just made it look good, like they cleaned it up for, like, the parents, like they did for Lady Diane. So she was only there briefly. But they used that kind of for the lamplight of, look, Lady Diana was there, and George Bush is telling you to send your kids there, and, you know, we got this place in Maine, and you got, like, manipulated little psychiatrists that are making money. Because if your kid is in an institution and they want to send them away, that psychiatrist is getting a kickback. It's just like medication. They're getting a kickback from the medication company. So it's the same thing. This Marvin Schwartz, and I don't mind saying his name, he was a bizarre, crazy doctor, and he's still alive, and he's still sending children to treatment programs. You know, which is shocking because he's 92 years old. But that's how I got to Elan, and that's how a lot of other children got to Elan, because he was good friends with Dr. Davidson. So it's by, you know, these doctors going to school, and then they say, you know, hey, I got this place, you know, and you send me some kids. You know, and we become marketed. You know, it's like sex. It's kind of like a sex trafficking kind of thing. You know, we're
it is
for sale. Yes.
Yeah. No. It's the largest legal child trafficking ring to ever exist. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry. You know, and as far as that Princess Diana thing with George Bush and all of them, that really exploded the troubled teen industry. That made it a landmark. And it made, you know, all of a sudden, the enemy was in our home, and the enemy was inside of our kids, and we had to straighten them out to get that out. And, you know, and for that particular meetup where Diana met with those straight kids, and I know this because I've talked to kids who were there.
Oh, okay. So, good.
They were all top-level straights, and they were all brought in, while the lower levels were left in the basement. They were all brought in on buses, and they were all specifically told, you behave this way, or you will be marathon for 3 weeks. You know,
Okay.
and I mean marathoning was where you would be kept awake and forced to do push-ups and beaten until you fucking submitted and collapsed.
Yes, I've heard some real horror stories about that Straits program. I'm very good friends with a lot of people, and what they had to endure. You know, there is no, you know, one thing I don't agree with is that, you know, some people want to say this place is worse than that place is, you know, I think they're all bad.
No.
So I'm not in for a competition here. You know,
it's not a competition, but also like the important thing to remember is one place led to the other place, and the other place led to the other place. And without the place before, there wouldn't be the ideas and the type of structure and architecture to the program. You know, this is how it started, and you can see the path. You can kind of see how one thing led to another, you know.
Mhm.
And how, you know, one program sort of recognized, or one businessman or con man sort of recognized that there was a market through some other place.
Exactly.
And that's,
yeah, and that's what happened. You know, we've had boys, and there's a place, I gotta make this very clear. You know this person as well as I do. It's my introduction to you. And, he was telling me about a place that's in Missouri right now, where it's a girls', you know, place. And girls are being raped right now. I'm not sure of the name of the place. I forgot because he told me and I wrote it down, but I have so many notes on the teen industry right now and writing and stuff, so I can't really bring that name up right now, but I have to bring awareness that,
Hezbollah House?
I'm not really sure. You know, and another thing is, I know a lot of these cults have religion attached to them, like there's pastors and there's, you know what I'm saying, and the pastor is, actually sleeping with these young girls, and they're forced to do this. Yeah. And that's just as bad as a slavery sex ring, you know. So we want to make it perfectly clear that this is happening as well. It's very important for people to know your child right now, if you're a parent, a social worker, a judge, you know, a psychiatrist, you really got to be aware of these places. In fact, the psychiatrist that I have now, he walked in, and this is when I first met him, and he said, so you were in Elan? And I said, oh, you know of it? And he said, no, I just know about the cult. You know, he didn't know about particular ones. He just knew that there was, and he said, all these people belong in prison, and, you know, what these children have gone through is unbearable, and a lot of people, and I think you know this, have committed suicide. So when people are having a drug overdose, it's always a question of my mind. Is it a suicide? You know? Yeah. And it's ruining people's lives because they're people's children and, you know, or, you know, that's somebody's brother or somebody's mother or somebody, you know what I'm saying? I can at least think of 15 people that have committed suicide since I've been on Facebook, which is my existence on Facebook. Never had curiosity and technology until I remembered Elan. Never.
Yeah, since 2011, and I found all the other survivors. I think I can count at least 107 people that I know who have committed suicide, who have gotten out of the program.
Yeah.
This is an epidemic. It's an epidemic, and these places are generally run by car salesmen at best, con men. You know, who are making a fortune. I mean, I know my partner Marcus, my podcast partner Marcus, he was investigating the place I went to, and he found out that the owner every year for the last 3 years has been taking $1 million out of it.
Wow.
You know, yeah. I mean, like, you know, it's gotten to the point where it's so big now and it makes so much money, he can just walk up to it like a bank and take $1 million out. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, and
I mean, I can. That's blood money. That's blood money that you're, you know, and kids' tears, and kids' pain, and adults with trauma in this country because of what you've done. This is a
Exactly.
non-scientific, pseudoscience bullshit way of dealing with parenting.
Mhm.
You know, and I I don't know what was going on in your home at the time when you went to Elan, but I imagine it wasn't, great.
Well, my home life was very abusive, okay? And
Yes.
I ran away from home because my mom
Sure.
and her boyfriend and my older brother, who was high on cocaine and steroids, was out of his mind. And so I would run away, and yes, I did smoke some pot, but that's not putting someone like that into an alarm situation or any kind of situation is not going to help them. It's going to do more damage. And there was some
generally.
Go ahead.
Generally, I don't want to interrupt you, but generally, when you're running away, when a teen is running away, there is a very damn good reason a teen is running away.
Mm-hmm.
The outside
you're right.
is more the outside is more comfortable than the inside. So,
yes.
So what probably needed to happen is for some therapy to be done in your home, and for some interventions to be done by professionals, and for you to have your community support you, which that doesn't exist right now.
No, it doesn't exist. Yeah.
But fundamentally, all teenagers pretty much eventually smoke pot, and if they don't, they'll do it in college.
Exactly.
And get over it, and
yeah, exactly.
Look to yourself as why your teen is running away and trying to get away from you. I mean, because I'm a runaway too. I was a runaway.
Okay.
That's why I got sent away as well. So I totally understand.
And that was a lot of kids that I knew from Elan, and I'm told that there were some really damaged kids there. And I'm just gonna throw this one out there. There was that girl, like I said, she was drawing children, so you put her in with other children. There was a few children that were violent, that stabbed somebody, for example. And they went to Elan, so now you're putting them with a bunch of other kids. Well, this could happen, and it did happen in there. I mean, some crazy, bizarre things have happened in these institutions or these programs. So it wasn't the first night I was there, I knew I was not in safe. I was really in a dangerous situation.
Yeah.
And I think that went through a lot of people's minds. I'm sure I'm not alone when I speak about that. That's your future. If you kind of have this feeling of despair, you're never going to get out. And then they beat you down. So then you walk through life, and I'm not saying for everybody, but for me, I walked through life thinking that I was nothing. And because that's what they did. They never built you back up. They didn't bring you back up. They pushed you down and made you feel dressing people like prostitutes. There were some women that actually had some serious issues from this and actually grew up to be a prostitute. And that was such a dangerous lifestyle, but they got it from Elan pretty much. You know what I'm saying? I'm just using this as an example. There was people that, might have been there for stealing stuff, but do you really think a place like this is going to really help them and make them change? No, I think it's going to make them worse. There's been people that actually got out of these places and have gone to prison, and I'm really amazed that I haven't met a serial killer from I'm just shocked that Joe Ritchie or nobody came after these people, and I'm using him as an example because that's who I know, you know what I'm saying? So because you would think that one would be so angry, but I think they planned on it that we would be so completely traumatized that we were not even, Joe Ritchie used to tell us no one's ever going to believe you, and we believe that, because it sounded so crazy. When I first started to remember these things, I thought I was losing my mind. So if it wasn't for the last stop and this other guy talking about Elan and his experience there, I don't think I would have made it to counseling. I think I probably would have, because I really thought I was losing my mind. especially with,
of course. Yeah, no, I know, me
yeah,
too, yeah. Because,
yeah, you
like, you
feel
get
so
out,
alone. Mm-hmm.
well, you get out, and also you're kind of, you get what's the word where, you're, it's like medical, like, denial of abuse or something. It's like, I can't remember the word for it, but you get this a lot, and you're, you know, like, everyone around you is telling you that what happened to you didn't happen to you.
Exactly.
Or you should just get over it. You should just get over it.
You know, that's the worst thing to tell somebody too.
You know, after particularly from TTI, because all of us kind of like, I mean, I would imagine you at least, because I can tell you're at least sensitive enough to understand what was going on. But you know, when I got out, I knew. You know, I'm not an idiot. I know that what I've just been through was horrific abuse. And what I just saw done to other kids for the last 4 years was some of the worst, most horrific decision making I've ever fucking seen by anyone in my life. And
exactly.
kids will probably never be okay from that. And you know, for me to like think that, you know, for me to get out and then have no one, absolutely no one, believe me or want to listen to me about it and just tell me to get over it, that re-traumatized me so much. It's so re-traumatizing. You know, and then when we do finally seek out help, I mean, you know, it took me until I was 28 to like start talking about it all and like to actually, you know, go to somewhere where people were talking about things and like, okay, well, I can talk about this here, you know, and okay, I'm going to start talking about this. You know, that took a very long time for me, and it took me also having all of you guys to bounce off of, to understand that this wasn't that, you know, I'm not crazy.
Exactly, we're not crazy.
No. I'm sorry that I'm ranting, and I'm sorry that I'm going on.
No, that's okay. No, I agree with you. That's why I came and seeked other survivors. I knew that they would believe me, and I knew that when I came to at 49 years old, you know, I found out that, you know, I started hearing about other programs, and I started to form relationships with those people because my family members were telling me, oh, just get over it. My mom was already dead by the time that I remembered the place. And then for my inheritance, she left me these letters that were never opened, and I just kind of like threw them aside because I guess, you know, it didn't mean anything to me until I started to remember, and then I started to read them. And then I have a good sense of what I was thinking back then, and I was trying to tip my mom off that this was a very dangerous situation and what they were doing. You know, I wish I would have wrote about Phil, but I think when that happened with Phil Williams, for example, I think my brain just kind of shut off and went into like a survivor mode. In fact, actually talking to people that have credentials. You know, I would tell you a lot of people that did not know these places existed were appalled that they did exist. You know, it's almost unbelievable. And that was, the thing is, seeking counseling with nobody that had any education on the industry. They looked at me like I was crazy, and I'd have to pull out my phone and show them like the last stop, or show them for the child's own good, so they knew what I was talking about. And it's funny because the Child of Darkness, I was actually there. I was in the reentry stage when that was being filmed. So I knew the kid in the bunny suit. I knew the kids in the dumpster. I knew the people that they showed at Elan 5. I knew the staff members that they showed. It was very weird to see them people again and remember who they were. And we were like in most of these places, we were sleep deprived. You know, they'd wake us up for general meetings, and we'd have to stay up all night and watch other kids sleep to make sure they didn't run away. You know, I would have to say that it was very bizarre to have kids living in the dumpsters in the state of Maine, at nighttime, for example, that's just very dangerous in sending children off. So I don't know what the other institutions were like at nighttime. I know the straights, they went to other people's houses, and if they were good, they could go to school. If you weren't good, you weren't going to go to school. In school, I can personally say this from Elan, they said that I took, like chemistry. I've never taken chemistry in my life, So when I came out and I went to school for my last year, I got in September. They had to set the record straight and they had to fix these documents. So it took me a month to be able to go back to a regular school because they were too busy covering their tracks again. Here we go with covering their tracks, These places are very deceiving, and that's what people really have to understand. I've never taken geometry and I've never taken chemistry or any of these classes, and I think we've been too traumatized to learn anything anyway, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah. I agree. No, I agree. I don't think I think at a certain point I lost the ability to be able to be educated. I was just trying to survive something that was just so horrific.
Yes, I think that was,
because you're kind of dying every day, and a little piece of you is dying every day, and you're kind of losing that sense of who you were and who you are and everything you thought before, everything you believed.
Yeah. And exactly. And, I've seen, for me personally, I didn't think I was ever going to have this damn place. I really didn't see any light at the end of the tunnel. And I think other people felt that way. And I was there for 20 months, and there was, for Elan example, and for the Straits program and other people, I've heard that they were there for like 3-4 years sometimes, which is a hell of a lot. Because our teenage years, are really crucial for a person's personality of who they're going to develop into as an adult. And I think that's why so many people are broken. I came out, I drank a lot of alcohol and I did a lot of LSD and things that I would normally not do. Because before Elan, people tried to give me alcohol and I was like, no, or people tried to give me Elan and Coke and I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And I think afterwards, with anything is going to go now, because I think we're just trying to bear the pain and cover it up. And I was told that when I was in a blackout drunk, and this is somebody that just told me this the other day, would tell me, my God, Ian, you would talk about Phil, you talked about general meetings, you talked about them cutting off your hair and holding you down on the floor, and we didn't believe you when you talked about people being dressed up. And we just thought you were in a drunken blackout. And really, I think what it came out to is that when I was totally bombed, the feelings came out. But when I was sober and, I would go back into not thinking about it to protect my own sanity, for example, and that's just my experience, and I don't think I'm alone with that. I think a lot of people did a lot of drugs when they got out. In fact, I've talked to quite a few of them. And things that happened to us probably wouldn't have happened if we weren't in a situation like this. Some people did go to jail. Some people did have, I noticed this a lot of survivors, and I'm one of them, that we've had broken relationships, because with complex PTSD, you allow yourself to be abused, or you're thinking that you deserve that. And I was in a very abusive relationship, and I talked to other women, for example, and they were in the same situation that I was in. So, I think that if we were never in these places, we wouldn't have picked out some of the situations that we put ourselves into,
Absolutely. And I want to say that, I believe that when I was 14 and I first went into program, my brain was in development, and I believe it got stunted at 14 due to trauma. And I don't think it was able to grow from there. And I don't think I was able to develop normally.
They you know what? It's like someone that starts to drink, they stop growing. For I'm using this as an example because pretty much I have talked to a lot of professional people that actually have credentials, and I mean advocates from police departments, I mean, counselors and psychiatrists and anybody that would really talk to me and seeking professional help, they all agree on the same thing, that really did affect the way that we were, and played away. And I have one advocate from the Des Plaines Police Department, and she told me that anybody that was in one of these places, she couldn't even finish watching, like, the last stop. Not the last stop, I'm sorry, it was the Child's Own Good. She couldn't even finish watching that. And this is a person that's an advocate that deals with abused children. And I brought it to her attention because my daughter was seeing her for her abusive father, per se, that's how I was associated with this woman. So she took an interest, and I met with her 4 different times on this subject, because then she started looking into other teen industries. And I'm glad that I did, because then she learned, don't trust this place, don't trust this place, and be careful where you send children, because I think it's important for people like that to be aware, because they're the ones that are kind of deceived too, because they don't know they sugarcoat these places and make them look all pretty and, and incredible, and they really don't know where they're sending children to. So I think that's important to talk to people in that position as well, which is why I brought it up to her,
Yeah.
So
good for you. I think it's important to talk to as many professionals as possible in the situations that, kids might be sent away. I think that's the key area where, we need to target the most,
Exactly.
Anyway.
And I just want to point out to you real quickly, though, when a child is telling somebody something, they should really take that child seriously, because they might be telling the truth. And as crazy as it sounds, a child's imagination can't be that wild where you're talking about boxing rings or, the things that you have experienced. You couldn't describe that. I don't even think Stephen King could make up this stuff. Just saying.
And programs use the term manipulating. Your child's going to manipulate you and talk against program, and these are tactics of how cults work and how they keep secrets and how abuse continues. Listen to your child. That's my last message is listen to your child. Listen more.
Yes.
Sit and talk and listen and understand. And if you can't understand, then go to someone else who can understand, who can help you to understand. Because this is not an option or an answer. Do not send your kid away to any of these places.
Yeah,
right.
I don't. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for talking.
Thank you so much. No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so very much. And it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure talking to you too, and I love talking TCI, and I'm so glad that you're awake, and that you can always contact me, and I'm always your friend.
Okay, and same here. And anybody that needs help, reach out for someone, that may be able to understand you. And that's really important for people to know that. Because sometimes
so
people
vital.
don't. Yeah. It's because that's why, I'm stronger today, because survivors reaching out for me and grabbing me and telling me it's okay and giving me my confidence, and it's really important to have that. And I tell people all the time, you can always call me, and it's just trying to help somebody else, that's struggling along the way. So yeah, so we're not here to beat each other up. We just
but the thing is, we didn't go through this for nothing.
Exactly.
And I think in our heads we want to justify that by at least we can be an ear or an understanding, human to someone else who's going through it.
And be somebody's
really
voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and be the person that we didn't have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because one thing I don't get is that I noticed that a lot of these shows that were from the 80s, like Elan and Straits and all that, nobody was paying attention to this. I don't know where people were, why they weren't watching this, but
I know.
Yeah, so it's you know, if there's one place like this, there's always another, and every time one seems to close, the other one seems to open, and that's what we have to just make people aware of. But,
Yeah.
you know, I'm
Yeah.
I'm always here for you, and thank you for you know, having me on and reaching out for me, and thank you for being my friend.
No, you're so welcome. Thank you, fellow survivor. I see you, survivor.
Yeah, we do
Okay.
thrive. We
Yeah.
can get through this, and that's what's important. So there is hope. You know, I don't want to see any more suicides. It's bad. You know?
All right. And if you like this show, you can like and subscribe. And we thank you very much for listening.
Send me a link,
Sure.
and I'll appreciate it. Thank you so very much, Lexi. You have a good day, okay?
You too, friend. Bye.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.